How's it going? My name is Thomas Brush and I make indie games for a living. Thank you for being interested in my 2D game kit. It's totally free. You can use it however you want. I don't care. It's my treat to you. You can make $1 million off this game kit. I really don't care. So let's open up GitHub and take a look at how you download this thing and how you use it. Okay. So this is GitHub. There's a button below. Click that and head on over to GitHub. And you're going to want to click this green button here and download the zip file. For those of you who understand GitHub, you can use SSH here or HTTPS. I don't really care. Or just download the zip file. If you don't know what GitHub is, basically all it is it allows me to push changes and fixes and bug fixes and keep making this game kit better and better and better. But you really don't need to worry about that. If you're unfamiliar with GitHub, that's totally fine. Just click download zip. Once you've downloaded it, you want to go ahead and extract it and put it in a folder you like on your computer. And make sure you open up this project inside of Unity. Use the Unity hub and click add. And then you're just going to want to find that folder, add it, and then it's going to ask you which Unity version you want to open the project with. In my case, for this video, we're going to use the most recent recommended version that Unity recommends, which is 2020.3. If you don't know which version the Super Simple Game Kit is currently utilizing, just be sure to check the README file that's included in the folder you download. And that's going to show which version of Unity we're using, okay? All right, once you open that up, it might take a little bit. It might throw you into a random scene or a new scene. Go ahead and take a look at the scenes folder here. And we have 4 scenes, and the first one I want to jump to is the demo level, and I'm already here. So this is the demo level. It includes a fairly large screen with a player and all these various objects. Everything you see here is what the game kit includes. Like the title of the game kit is, it's a super simple game kit. Basically, it's a canvas for you to fill in with code, with illustration, with story, with variations of the objects in the scene. So I'm going to hit play here and just show you what we've got. I'm going to clear out these errors here. These are probably going to be fixed for you, so don't worry about that. All right, so I've got the ability to punch up, to the right, to the left, down. The down, actually, we don't have a down one yet. I might do that in a future version. We've got parallaxing, which that's just basically when the camera, there's an effect that makes it look like the background is further away from the camera. We can break boxes, get coins, collect keys. I got to jump over here to get that key, but you get the point. Enemies that patrol, and also flying enemies that shoot homing missiles. Which is really cool. I actually really like those. We've got the ability to talk to things. We've got the ability to lock doors and open doors with keys. Just the basics of pretty much any classic platformer game. And you can see here there's a UI. We can pause, right? And we can also, go to a logo intro. This basically allows you to put your logo on your game. Right now, it's currently just a square that fades in. But you can put your little logo there, and then it's going to take us also to this menu scene here. And it's just 2 buttons, right? 2 very simple buttons. You could swap out the graphics here, expand this, make it controller friendly, do all that stuff. But again, this is a super simple 2D kit. Nothing crazy, right? And believe it or not, I've used this kit for so many projects because it's such a great starting point. Let's go to our demo level here, and I'll show you why it's such a great starting point and how you can utilize it for your projects. Okay, the reason it's great, in my humble opinion, is because it comes with the character controller ready to go, its animations, a game manager, and those are in these objects here. Now, we have these little, they basically look like headers, but they're just game objects with formatting on them. But we have this persistent objects header. And by the way, if you want to make a header, just do the 2 dashes and it creates a header. But we have our persistent objects here, which are the player, the startup, and the pause menu. Let's break down the player really quick. I think this is really important. This is obviously the most important game object in your scene. This is a persistent object. It's not going to be deleted. It's not going to be destroyed when you go to a new scene. Okay. And inside of it, we have these sprites here, right? And also the bones that allow us to animate the sprite. And I can show that to you really quick. So if we scroll up, there we go. Click gizmos. It's going to show the bones here, right? And this is cool because all this is actually just a PSB file, not a PSD, but a PSB. That's a Photoshop big file. I can actually double click it and it's going to open up Photoshop, and I can tweak the sprite. And this is really, really important for you to understand. You can go in here and tweak the graphics of our buddy and create some kind of like tie, or maybe give him some buttons on his shirt. Or you could go so far as to make him look completely different, like I've done with my Cyberpunk remake or my BioShock remake. Those 2D games have the BioShock characters and and the Cyberpunk characters, but I've just started with this basic model here. Once you save it, you might have to go into Unity and click Sprite Editor to if you go to skinning editor here, and you're going to need to probably have a good understanding of this stuff to be able to change this, and there's plenty of tutorials on the skinning editor on YouTube. But overall, we have this mesh here, and we can change that mesh in Photoshop and it'll update on the fly. So that's how you change out the graphics for the player. And yeah, so we're good with the player here. This new player script, don't worry about it. We're going to actually break down all the scripts in just a second. But when I say don't worry about new player script, what I mean is we'll worry about that in a second. But this new player script is massive and it's huge. There are two scripts that we have an instance of that are persistent and we can access them. That is the new player script and also the game manager script, which is inside of our startup object here. We're going to talk about those two scripts and why they're so valuable, okay, when we break down the scripts. But I can tell you right now that the game manager script and the player script, you want to have access to those all the time when you're writing your scripts. And we have that in this game kit. I'm going to show you how we do that when we talk about the scripts. Okay, the game manager stores, valuable information and references like the HUD, the game music, the game ambience. And then we also have the pause menu here. Oh, and I forgot to mention this HUD here, which is our canvas with all of our graphics, right? Now, I think it's important to note that I love utilizing the animation pane and also the animator pane. The animator allows for all of these beautiful trees here, okay, these animation trees. So I think it's really important to note that the player takes advantage of transitions and parameters. And so if you don't have a good understanding of the animator pane and how to handle animation and the animator, and sometimes it's called the Mecanim animator, I definitely recommend getting a firm grasp on that. But if you don't have a firm grasp on it, you can get away with using what we've got already, which is the jump animation, the run animation, and the punch animation. But I do recommend you kind of get a good idea of how to use animation, okay? Now, the cool thing about the animation, or the cool thing about the way I utilize animation in Unity, is I have a script called the animator function script. And again, we're going to go through all the scripts in a second. But just know that this animator function script has a bunch of custom functions. I said that, it sounded like a bad word. Functions that you should know about. I'm going to open up Visual Studio just really quick. Again, we're going to break down all the scripts, but I just want to show you all these different fun little scripts here that we can fire and use whenever we want inside of the animation tab. Sorry, my kid is screaming. She's in the hall behind me, so you might hear her crying. So we have these little animation events here, and we can fire all these cool different functions, and these are just functions in the animator functions script. Okay, so those, if you ever see events here, you can click on them and see what they are. Emit particles, and those are going to emit like particles at the feet. Pound effect, play a step sound. Emit particles, play a step sound. So if we click the player here, you can see there's a few parameters here, like this particle step, and that just allows us to pinpoint which particles are going to emit when we actually do like the emit particles here. Okay. So just keep that in mind as you're working with the player animation. We take advantage of the animator hierarchy, or the animator trees and transitions and parameters. And then in the animation window here, we also take advantage of events. Okay. You don't necessarily have to understand all this to take advantage of the kit, but it's going to make it so much more scalable if you do understand it. Okay. All right. So that's the player. And there's plenty, obviously, that you can dig around and take a look at with the player, but it's pretty generic boilerplate character controller. Now, when it comes to the level objects, this is super duper important. First off, these are not persistent, so these are specific to a scene. Cameras, music, ambience, and also the graphics, which that's all in the scene layers. What I mean is those are going to destroy when you open up a new scene. Okay. Like when you're in play mode and the character loads into a new level, these are going to destroy. So the first thing I want to mention before we jump into the scene layers, because scene layers is a big, important topic. When we take a look at our cameras here, you'll see that all it includes is a main camera and a virtual camera. The virtual camera basically tells the main camera what to do. This is not something that I created. This is just Cinemachine. Cinemachine is the default camera system that Unity recommends that we use. So we're using Cinemachine. I recommend watching a tutorial on Cinemachine, but there's tons of stuff that you can do with Cinemachine. For this game kit, we take advantage of Perlin Noise, which is the screen shake, and that screen shake function is available inside of the animator functions script. That's probably a little bit too convoluted though, so don't worry too much about that. But mainly all we're doing is just following the player. That's about all we're using Cinemachine for. Okay. So that's our cameras prefab, and these are all prefabs, by the way, meaning we can use them over and over again. This is my favorite prefab. It's not the most important, but it's close. The most important is the player. But the scene layers prefab is my favorite, and it's because it makes things so easy. If we open up this prefab, you'll see that it's just a bunch of blank layers. Okay. Negative layers are the foreground. Layer 0 is going to be the ground or anything on the layer the player can interact with, like enemies, boxes, stuff like that. Layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you can make as many as you want, those are layers that go into the background. Now, why is this important? First, because there's a sorting group, so it tells us where the graphics appear as layers, and I'll show it to you in a second. But also this parallax layer script, which tells the layers how to move in parallax. See, our camera is not actually a perspective camera. Our camera is an orthographic camera, meaning it's not actually behaving as a 3D camera would where things shift. An orthographic camera, everything moves at the same speed relative to the camera, so you have to sort of tell the background what to do. So let me show you. This parallax controller script is going to tell all of these children here, which contain parallax layer scripts, how fast they should move relative to the camera. So I'm going to move the game pane over here and hit play. I'm going to show you. Notice how the background here is moving kind of with the player. Not at a perfect speed, not 1-to-1, but close. Notice how the foreground actually moves in the opposite direction. And it's creating a parallax effect, right? See that? Pretty cool. Now, obviously, you can make a 2D game with a 3D camera, but it's a little complicated and it gets confusing putting things together. There's sort of a whole topic to unpack. I'm not going to do that right now. But overall, just know that in this game kit, we use orthographic cameras and we simulate parallax, okay? So as you can see here, I've actually just dragged in a bunch of graphics, like these black squares in the foreground. So that's layer -2. I could put them in layer -3, -4, -5, -6. Excuse me. And I could also shift the amount of parallax if I wanted to. So there's only a few layers here that I've actually taken advantage of, but you could take advantage of all of them. Layer 3 is more in the background, right? Like this building right here, this sort of looping. You could barely see it because it's kind of dark, but Yeah, there you go. This looping tile here is the sort of the mid ground is what I call it on layer 3. Layer 6 is the sky, right? So sometimes what I like to do is actually put the sky inside of the camera, oddly enough. You know how when you're driving on the road and the sun never moves? That's kind of like almost the sun was attached to the camera. That's kind of the way it looks. And so what I do with the sky is I'll either put it in layer 6 and have it move really slow, or I'll have it move perfectly one-to-one with the camera, and it never changes positions because it's always with the camera, right? Okay, so those are our scene layers. So what you do is you just, make a big, huge graphic. So here's what I do. If we go to, I believe it's in demo. Yeah, this is actually a PSB file. So I'm going to open this up in Photoshop and show you. Look, I have all of my graphics here. It's just randomly put together. Usually what I'll do is I'll go into Photoshop, make a beautiful city, and then once it looks beautiful the way exactly how I want it, I'll delete all of the duplicates and just have my pieces that I'm going to use, kind of like Legos, my root pieces that I'm going to use. And these are all, none of these are duplicates. These are all individual pieces. They're named properly. When you save it as a PSB file, save as a PSB, which is a large document format, or a better way of putting it in my head is Photoshop big file, PSB file, not a PSD file, a PSB file. When you save it as a PSB file, Unity imports all these layers. So let's jump into Unity really quick. And when I collapse it down, I can drag in the sprites. See this? So I can drag them all over. I can drag one here, one here. I can put it all over the place. See that? Pretty cool. So I could drag in those sprites, and they're going to move with that parallax. And also, this is important. I told you I was going to talk about this. Notice how the sorting layers, by default, it's set to default 0. But on layer 2, which is part of the prefab, we have a sorting group called layer 2, right? So it's automatically telling anything that's inside of this parallax layer is going to be sorted behind something in front of it. So the sorting is occurring automatically. You're going to need to tweak some of the sorting of various items as children. So for example, if I had like 20 trees inside of layer 2, if I wanted one tree to appear in front of another one, I might need to tweak the order in that sorting layer, right? Like this. But overall, it's way easier doing it this way than dragging everything into the scene, and then each little object you determine what the parallax is, and also the sorting layer. This is a much cleaner way to do it. And so you can use this scene layers prefab. It's right here in the world prefabs folder. You can use this over and over and over again. So every time you create a new level, just drag that scene layers prefab in there, and you automatically have all of these layers ready to go. So that's really useful. Now, obviously, inside of scene layers, in layer 0, we have a ton of stuff. We have a lot of different kinds of prefabs, and we talked about these when we played the game. We have boxes, and these all contain their own custom scripts. Again, we're going to run through the scripts in a second. We have a key prefab. We have enemies, flying enemy prefabs. We have door prefabs, this one right here, which has an animation. It shakes the screen and drops down, but you can animate it however you want. So there's just a ton of stuff that's included in coins, especially. The coins are really fun to collect. But overall, yeah, we have a ton of stuff here. And then also, this is important, we have a load scene trigger right here. So if I drop below this broken bridge after I break it, this will load a new scene. And so I think now would be a good time to jump into discussing the scripts, okay? There's a music and ambience game object here. All those take advantage of our audio trigger scripts. And so let's just jump right into the scripts. So we have a few scripts here, and the way they're sorted currently might look a little bit different on your screen because I'm in the middle of cleaning up the scripts. So you might see it a little bit different, but overall, generally, all the scripts you have currently are probably the same as what are in this video. It's just that they might be sorted differently. We have a camera effects script, which will reference the Cinemachine component, and we can do some cool camera effects like screen shake. Enemy base, which then we can take flyer and walker, which are extensions of the enemy base. We also have a physics object script. We have a lot of core scripts, dialogue, and dialogue box controller. So there's lots of cool stuff here, a game manager and new player. So really quickly here, I want to go first through the new player script. This is the most important. I'm not going to break down everything in here. The way that I write scripts is super rudimentary. I don't do anything complicated. Very little is complicated. So you do need to have a good understanding, like probably an intermediate level of understanding with C#. But overall, you can open up these scripts, and I've commented out what I think needs to be commented out to give you a better idea of things, how things work. There's no resources, there's no documentation for this, because you can just look at this and pretty much get a good idea of what's going on. A lot of just rudimentary if-then statements. But the important thing to note here with this new player script is, let's see here. I wanted to find it for you. Yes, okay. With the new player script, you'll notice that we're referencing Game Manager. Look at this. This is about the only complicated, it's like not even that complicated, but this is the only thing that might be a little bit confusing. If you ever want to reference anything, when you're going from, let's say you're going from animator functions and you want to reference something in the game, all you've got to do is type in game manager dot instance dot whatever you want to reference. Okay, so we have a ton of references inside of the game manager. So let me open up the game manager for you. There is our game manager. So there's lots of cool things that we can reference inside of the game manager, right? And that's because we have this singleton instantiation script here. I don't want to be too convoluted and get too in the weeds here, but this is really, really useful. This singleton instantiation, basically, and we have one on the new player as well. So the singleton instantiation only occurs for 2 scripts. What the heck am I talking about? Well, for those of you who don't understand singleton instantiation, this basically allows us to reference this instance all the time. So the traditional way of referencing an instance of an object is doing something like GameObject.find player .get component, right? It's a big mess, right? And you have to do that every time you have a new class or a new script. With Game Manager and also new player, all you have to do is go new player .instance and then reference whatever components we want. Okay? So we can do that over and over and over again inside of any script, right? Which is really cool. And those, again, are persistent objects. They exist in every scene. They just jump from scene to scene to scene to scene, right? Even though the graphics in the scene might destroy, you're still going to have that player. And you can always reference all of the cool variables and references inside of the player, okay? So if I wanted to reference the graphic of the player, the particle system, or the camera effects, or the attack box, or the animator functions, all this stuff I can reference by just going into some script, doesn't matter which one it is, and just typing new player .instance. And as long as the variable is public, we can reference it. Pretty cool. The same is true with Game Manager. It's really up to you how you want to utilize the Game Manager versus the new player. Technically, I could just put all of the Game Manager references and variables and functionality inside of the new player script, but I like to keep things separate. With Game Manager, we have a few variables here that we want just specific for the Game Manager, like the music and the ambience, our inventory, references to the HUD, that kind of thing. Okay. So that's really the 2 most important scripts, is Game Manager and the new player. There's all sorts of other cool scripts here, like an attack box, audio triggers, bouncers, you can bounce on them, breakables, collectibles like coins, and look at how cool this is. You know, we've got these collectibles, And we have the ability to collect different kinds, right? You have an inventory item like a key, coins. Can you collect some health maybe, some ammo? And it's just a very, very simple if-then set of statements down here. If it's a nothing, then, well, this is kind of irrelevant here. But if this one is, if we collect a coin, then add a coin. And what's cool is it'll also update the UI and do a flash effect as well. So pretty basic stuff here, and just very basic conditions here. It's pretty much self-explanatory when you read it. Okay, one quick thing that we want to note about the dialogue. The dialogue is super rudimentary, very simplistic. The dialogue allows for two choices, so you can choose the choice on the left or the choice on the right, and the one on the right will take you down one additional dialogue path. It's not super complicated. If you want something complicated, I suggest taking a look at the Unity dialogue system on the asset store. But this, I use the same dialogue system for PewDiePie, and it's very basic, very rudimentary. So let me show you kind of how it works here. So if we go to dialogue here, look, all it is a C# script, contains a dictionary, and you don't need to understand everything about dictionaries. Trust me, I don't. But that dictionary has allows for us to write some scripts here. Okay, so let me sort of show you how the script writing works. Okay, so if you ever want to create a new script or a new set of dialogue, let's take a look at the character here for like an NPC. Okay, this is character A. Let's just worry about character A. We could call him whatever we wanted. We could call him Phil. All right. You can see here, there's his dialogue. Everything's separated with commas, right? And he says, "Hi there, I'm an NPC. This conversation is called NPC A," or we could say whatever, Phil. This conversation is called Phil. If you go find me 80 coins, my dialogue will move to NPC B. Feel free to edit my dialogue in the dialogue C# script, which is right here. We're in that. To keep it simple, you can also ask me one and only one question. So he's kind of giving us a tutorial here. Like you just did, and I'll move to the next sentence, okay? Blah, 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 blah. So where are those choices presented? They're presented here, okay? This is where we've declared them. So what you do is you say whatever the name is, okay? This is how you do all the syntax. No spaces, and then do choice 1. Same here. So if it was Sandy, it would be Sandy, choice 2. But it's not Sandy, it's Phil. Phil, choice 2. And you can see here, 1, 2, those are both blank. If they're blank, the choice won't show up. And then this third one here is when it shows up. So we have these two choices that occur here. So he says, if you find me 80 coins, my dialogue will move to NPC B. And you can say, let's go find some coins. Or you can say, what else can you do? And then he'll go, bloop, and he'll tell you that. See how that works? So this option here, choice 2, is always going to continue on the dialogue. Otherwise, it'll stop. Okay? That's really it. It's very, very basic, very simplistic. Feel free to dig into this and get a good grasp on it. But overall, I think you can figure it out. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And you can see here, they're just all stored in this one file here. Remember, you have the name. So in particular, with this character A, you have the name. And then if you want to do choices, you do choice 1 after the name, and then choice 2 after the name. And then finally, this is what happens here. Character B. This is what happens after you find him his coins. Okay. So we have character A, character B. It's just the same character. So I could call it this. I should probably explain this. Phil A, and then this is Phil B. This isn't a different character. All this is once you've found the coins, he's going to fire this line of dialogue. Okay. So that's about it. Pretty cool. And you can see here, if we go to our dialogue object, so this is a prefab called dialogue object. It's in our prefabs folder. And this can be anything, right? It can be a character, it can be a door, it can be a typewriter like Resident Evil. It can really be anything, right? And all it is an animated sprite. You can do any graphic you want with a little box collider that's set to trigger. And then it includes the dialogue trigger here. And there's plenty of options for you to look at and explore here. So just have fun looking at all these different options here. We can have it auto hit. We can have it repeat. You can keep talking to him over and over again. This is where you determine what the character's name is. So this could be anything. It could be Johnny, right? But dialogue string A and dialogue string B, see that? There's character A. This could be Phil A, and this could be Phil B, right? Oops, let me write that. And also, my favorite thing here is we can actually add audio lines to each corresponding line of dialogue. Pretty cool, huh? And we also have some fetch quest options here. And the sprite that if let's say you get an object, the sprite you can get. So there's just a ton of cool stuff here that you can mess around with. Give stuff to the player, or the player can pay with something like coins. And so just take a look at this and feel free to open up the script. Here's the thing. If you don't understand something, open up the script. And look, there's so much information here that you can dig into to learn more. I've left as many comments as I can for you so you can think of each script almost as documentation in and of itself, because there's so much to read here regarding the comments. But again, I use very simplistic rudimentary code. So don't stress too much. It looks big here, but just read it, read it and look at it and go, oh, it's just simple conditions. And if those are met, then items are given or items are taken. Very simplistic script writing here. Nothing too crazy. All right. So there's some other stuff here that you can take a look at with these scripts. These two are actually really fun. You can do random animator speeds and also rotate an object. Parallax, I wouldn't mess with parallax if I were you. It's kind of complicated. I don't even remember how I wrote this. I think I combined some scripts I found online for this, but it's basically a for loop that shifts the graphics relative to the camera. But that's about it. UI here, you could dig into this stuff all you want, but nothing too crazy here. So that is how you use the game kit, guys. Just dig in, have a good time, and like I said, if you're ever confused with the game kit, just open up the scripts. I highly recommend you understand C#. If you don't understand C#, it might be a little bit difficult working with this game kit because it's just the base. It's just a clean canvas for you to put your own code into, put your own graphics into. But anyway, I want to wish you the best of luck using this game kit and the best of luck in your journey. If you haven't followed me on YouTube, feel free to find me on YouTube. My name is Thomas Brush. Subscribe, leave a comment on one of my videos. That would mean a lot. And hit the notification bell to get notified when I upload a new video or when I'm live streaming. So that's about it. Ultimately, guys, I want to see you succeed. If you want to take this game kit to the next level, maybe you want to understand more about C#. I have a program called Full-Time Game Dev. You can find it at fulltimegamedev.com and take a look and see if that program is for you. I have over 2,000 students worldwide. It's a massive program, great reviews. And also, if you want to learn how to do just 2D art, you can learn that in Full-Time Game Dev, but I also have a program called 2D Art Pro, and you can take a look at that as well using the links below. 2D Art Pro is going to teach you advanced 2D art concepts and how you can take this and make it look like a beautiful painting. All right, I will talk to you later. Good luck on your journey. Peace.